There's a saying that goes thus: ignore the messenger, focus on the message. Ladies and gentlemen, that quote has officially expired. These days, it even feels like the messenger matters more than the message. And you won't be wrong to feel that way. We are in the age of personality-driven influence, where charisma is often interpreted as credibility, and energy can be mistaken for evidence. Let's be real, you could say something wise, true, and timeless, and still be ignored. Meanwhile, someone else can repackage your words with designer glasses, a confident tone, and a cinematic reel, and they'll go viral. Why? Because we don't just listen with our ears anymore. We now listen with our eyes. We don't just hear what is said. We feel who is saying it. A 2023 study at Stanford University showed that speakers rated as more charismatic were trusted 2.5 times more, even when their content was identical to their less charismatic counterparts. Another report by Nielsen showed that 92% of consumers trust influencers more than traditional ads. Not because of what they are saying, but because of who they appear to be. In other words, perception now leads persuasion. There's something called the confidence heuristic. It's a psychological bias. Now, what it points to is that our brains are wired to believe that the more confident someone appears, the more correct they have to be. It's why misinformation can spread faster than facts if it is delivered with certainty. Think about it. If a timid genius and a bold fool walk into a room, guess who people will follow? The one who looks sure, not necessarily the one who is right. We live in the Netflix generation. Story, style, aesthetics, they all matter now. Even the truth needs a ring light. It's called the Netflix effect. You should check it out. You see, people don't just follow what is wise. They follow what is well delivered. They follow presence. But here's the twist. It's not about choosing between message and messenger. It is about marrying the two. Because charisma might open the door, but character is what keeps you invited back. The messenger gets the attention. The message builds retention. In a world full of performance, depth will always be your differentiator. In a loud world, charisma is volume, but wisdom is frequency. So if your voice carries weight, you don't need to bother your head about who shouts louder. Yes, the messenger matters. But if you carry both presence and principle, you won't just go viral, you will go deep. And deep is what lasts. You have never seen your own face. No, really, not even once. You've seen mirrors, you've seen photos, you've seen your front camera and reflections from tinted windows. But you've never actually seen your face directly. Ever. And isn't that wild? You go through life presenting your face to the world, but you are the only one who can't actually see it. It's kind of like throwing a party and being the only person who can't hear the music. Here's what it means though, and it's deeper than it sounds. You can't fully understand who you are without reflection. Because just like you need a mirror to see your face, you need people to see your identity. Think of life like a stage. You are the actor delivering your lines, but you will never see the performance from the audience's view. You don't see the lighting. You can't feel the impact the way they do. So how do actors get better? They watch playback, they get feedback, they reflect. And that's when I got to a staggering realization. Self-awareness is not just about looking inward. It is about seeing echoes of yourself in the world around you. You know the crazy thing about mirrors? Mirrors flip left and right, but they don't flip up and down. You know what that means? It means the face you know as yours is not the face the world sees. Now, according to psychologists, we prefer the mirror version of ourselves because that's what we are used to. But our friends prefer the actual version that they see. And in a very fun twist, a 2020 study showed that people often have a more accurate perception of your personality traits than you do. Meaning your friend might know your strengths more than you think. Now tell me that doesn't mess with your understanding of self-awareness. So what do we do with all this? Simple. Don't trust that you know yourself just because you are with yourself all the time. Reflection completes the picture. You are not meant to walk through life guessing what you look like. You are meant to walk with people who reflect your truth. So next time you look in the mirror, remember that is not the full you. That's just one angle. There's still more of yourself to meet. Sometimes it takes just one honest conversation to show you who you really are. Have you ever seen a hen sit on an egg for 21 days? I promise you, it is one of the most powerful pictures of purpose you will ever see. No noise, no movement, no applause. Just heat, pressure, and faith. From the outside, nothing looks like it's changing. But inside that shell, destiny is forming. Organs, bones, identity, purpose. And here's the thing. If you crack an egg too early, you kill what it could have become. Because potential needs time, not proof. Potential needs pressure, not popularity. What's really crazy about this process is that the hen can't see what is going on inside the egg. No ultrasound, no feedback, no sign of life. But she sits day after day after day. Why? Because she knows that as long as she stays faithful to the assignment, the egg will hatch. Isn't that true about purpose? You don't always see progress, but something is forming deep inside the shell. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. Let me say this to you. The shell is not your limitation, it is your incubation. Silence is not your enemy, it is your environment for formation. The hen doesn't need proof, she just needs faith and consistency. She shows up, she keeps it warm, she does her part. And the rest, that's God's job. So if you are building something right now that no one can see, if you feel hidden, overlooked, or forgotten, remember the hen. She doesn't see change, but she believes. And because she believes, life happens. Stay faithful, stay planted. Sometimes the pressure you feel is not proof of failure. It's the promise of formation. The egg never looks pregnant, but it is carrying destiny. The shell looks the same every day, but the chick inside it never stays the same. Formation always comes before revelation. The shell is not a trap, it is a timer. And every timer eventually hits 0. And when it does, you break through. This video is for you as much as it is for me. The version of you that nobody sees is the version that is shaping your life. Not the one you show online, not the one you perform at work or in conversations, but the one who decides what to do when there's no one clapping. That's the real you. Think about it. The world sees what you post, but your life becomes what you practice. Every quiet decision you make in the dark, what you eat, what you read, what you binge watch, what you think on, it all compounds. Visibility may create a following, but invisibility creates foundations. During the week, I stumbled upon a study that says 43% of our daily actions are unconscious habits. And it's not far-fetched. An average human being breathes about 20 to 25,000 times per day. I can guarantee that you, who is looking at me right now, are not conscious of up to 50 breaths out of that 25,000 per day. Just 50 intentional breaths per day. I am certain that you are not conscious of up to that amount. Now, if something so powerful that it keeps you alive is mostly run on autopilot, how much more things of lesser consequence? Your real self is not what you promise to do next week. It is what you do on autopilot when no one is around. That's where your life is really being built. I've always said it. Personal branding begins with internal engineering. So before you worry about branding, ask yourself, what kind of person am I becoming when no one is watching? Because one day, the world will see it. Sooner or later, your lifestyle will inevitably be louder than your announcements. Seed time and harvest. Enjoy your weekend. People do not know what wisdom is. When most people hear the word wisdom, what they actually picture is omniscience. Someone who always knows what to say, who always knows what to do, who sees clearly through every problem. But I have news for you. That is not wisdom. That is God. It's why I, personally, do not believe that the word wise accurately describes God. The God that I know, that I serve, is all-knowing, omniscient, and omniscience eats wisdom for breakfast. Omniscience is a divine trait. Wisdom is a human journey. Wisdom thrives in scenarios of uncertainty, and that is not God's home address. Anyway, I digress. You want to be wise, at least from a conventional standpoint, then prepare to look foolish. Not once, not twice, but repeatedly. See, most people want reputation, not revelation. They want to be seen as wise, not formed by wisdom, and that's why they never grow. Let me tell you something dangerous. Your stature in wisdom is directly tied to your tolerance for intentional foolishness. Let me find another way to put this. You can't become wise without first becoming a student of ignorance. Why? Because wisdom is not the absence of not knowing. Wisdom is the humility to walk through not knowing and keep asking questions anyway. It is the courage to say, I don't know yet. It is the boldness to say, I may be wrong. Teach me. The fear of looking foolish is one of the surest ways to remain small. When Nicodemus asked Jesus how a grown man could be born again, he looked foolish. When Peter stepped out of the boat onto the water, he looked foolish. Here's what you don't know. Foolishness in the right direction is the raw material for divine wisdom. And here's the kicker. If you get good at it, you can mature to the point where you even start to mentor your own foolishness. The point where you are willing to learn out loud, to ask the dumb question, to goof publicly and move forward anyway, because you don't become wise in private. No, wisdom in essence harnesses human attention. You become wise in front of others by risking misunderstanding and mistakes. Wisdom is not how much you know, but how well you move when you don't. So if you want to grow in wisdom, at least conventional wisdom, you have to increase your bandwidth for looking like a fool on purpose. Because the real fools are the ones who pretend that they know everything. In all you're getting, get wisdom. There is something shifting in our society that is a little difficult to put into words, but we all feel it. We scroll past beauty in 3 seconds. We skip intros, we jump into conclusions. We download the summary, we ask for shortcuts. We want results without the wrestle. Instant gratification is shifting from a desire to an expectation. We are becoming a society that is allergic to process. But here's the irony. Every single thing that has ever helped us grow came through process. The depth in conversations, the skill in a craft. None of these come instantly. They are baked, not microwaved. They are earned, not downloaded. But now we are living in an age of instant everything. And this culture has given birth to tools that serve it. Tools like AI. Not necessarily because we were curious. These tools at the core were a response to something else. Impatience. Now, AI is not the villain, it is a mirror. It reflects back our desire for speed and results over nuance. But we lose everything sacred when we move too fast. We lose the thrill of discovery, the joy of unfolding. We lose the wisdom that only comes from sitting with something long enough that it changes you. Think of someone who climbed to the top of a mountain versus the person who was dropped there by a helicopter. Both of them have the view, but only one of them has the internal transformation that comes with climbing to the mountain top. Also, what happens on the day that it is demanded of them to be at the mountaintop, but there's no helicopter? Look around you. The thinkers who will shape the future are not just the fastest. They are the ones who think slow but act fast. The ones who are not addicted to instant answers. The ones who intentionally familiarize themselves with the unknown. The ones who seek hidden riches, the treasures of the dark. The ones who believe in earning clarity through tension, through patience, and through practice. So yes, we have the tools of the future, but may we not lose the muscles of becoming, because there's still power in process. Even the all-powerful God broke down creation into 7 days when he has the power to do it in one. There is still depth in slow growth. There is still wonder waiting for those who don't rush past it. Even the good book says he has made everything beautiful in its time. This means beauty and meaning are revealed through timing. Don't rush, orchestrate. So there's a side to the law of attraction that I've realized a lot of people overlook. People say think positive, dream big, speak it into the universe and all of that. And while all of that is great, let me tell you something sobering. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you think you are. You can desire love, but if you think deep down that you are unworthy, you will mistake toxicity for attention. It's not really what you want that shows up. It's what your subconscious believes that you deserve that shows up. And your subconscious always obeys your identity, not your wish list. Desire is not a magnet, identity is. And here's the hard truth. Most people don't fail because they didn't try hard enough. They fail because their self-perception rejected everything they prayed for. You cannot manifest a future your identity is allergic to. For instance, a brilliant woman starts a business. Evidently she wants success, but deep down she still sees herself as the girl who always messes things up. So when a big opportunity comes, she delays, she downplays it, she procrastinates. Why? Because identity always wins the tug of war between who you want to be and who you believe you are. So before you ask the universe for more, ask yourself, have I become the kind of person who can carry what I'm asking for? Because who you want to be is waiting, but it is waiting for who you think you are to catch up with who you are meant to be. God can open a door, but your self-worth determines if you walk through it. You will always return to what you think you deserve. I've realized a lot of times we are not even fighting life. We are just negotiating with our own reflection. Until your mind is updated, your reality will keep buffering. Even the good book says, a man who is in honor and does not know it is like beasts that perish. Look, you can be crowned in the heavens and still crawl on earth if you don't know who you are. Wipe your mirror. A lot of times you are not stuck because it's hard. You are stuck because you don't want to admit that you have wasted time. If the food is bad, why are you still eating it? Because you've already paid. And this could be a metaphor for your career, your relationship, your business. You keep chewing pain because you don't want to waste the bill. Well, staying is the real waste. Clinging to a mistake because you spent time making it is like hugging a cactus because you bought it. One day you'll realize that pain is not an investment plan. I've known guys who gamble. I'll see them lose, say, 20k, then another 20k. Not to win, but to win back what they had already lost. By the time they stopped, they were no longer fighting for the prize. They were fighting for their pride. That is called sunk cost fallacy, when the past is holding the present hostage, while the future quietly exits the womb. You cannot keep driving in the wrong direction because you already paid for petrol. You will need to turn around because petrol is cheaper than lost time. Money can go, time can go. What you have is decision. The past is a receipt. The future is a choice. Many of us grew up being told, finish that food, don't waste it. That's a necessary lesson. But we are adults now, and we are still trying to finish dead mental models and mindsets because we hate waste. Yet, Every year we spend trying to prove that we were right is the most expensive waste of all. We laugh at Lot's wife for longingly looking back at the things that she was leaving behind in Sodom and Gomorrah. Well, isn't that what we are doing as well? Holding on to what no longer serves us. Look, consistency that makes you smaller is not discipline, it's captivity. So tonight, do an audit. Ask yourself, where am I paying rent to my past? What have I outgrown but I'm still managing? What truth do I already know but I'm afraid to obey because of how much I've invested? The future will not reward you for your loyalty to the wrong thing. No man ever steps into the same river twice, for it is no longer the same river and he is no longer the same man. You see, the river moves, but more importantly, the man does too. The version of you who started this video is not the same that will finish it. What used to work will not always work, not because it was wrong then, but because you have outgrown the reason why it was right. Look, repetition is not always mastery. Sometimes it is stagnation in disguise. A lot of people think they've covered distance, but they've been walking on a treadmill. You can't use yesterday's hammer to solve today's algorithm. You cannot lead your future by standing on the podium of your past. That's where the trap is. The praise that pauses progress. Applause is addictive. It can make you forget that the river is moving, forget that your tools are expiring. Do you know? An applause is validation for your past efforts. If you listen to it for too long, you are trapped in the past. But if you are the kind that moves on fast from praises and adulation, an applause for you will only be a bedrock for future possibilities. A lot of people are not stuck because they failed. They are stuck because they won once and try to make that moment last forever. But the river doesn't care what awards you won in 2020. The current keeps flowing. The irony about winning is that it has the propensity to stop you from innovating. You then start imitating your last win. But you see, from the exact moment you won, the river has changed. The man has changed. Strategy must be tweaked accordingly. You either reinvent or become irrelevant. If the applause is louder than your inner hunger, you have already peaked. Don't turn a simple milestone into a monument. As for me, I've long decided I will never arrive. As God strengthens me, I will continue to evolve, expand, recalibrate as I always have, and you can attest to that. But arrive? Never. Rivers don't arrive. The future belongs to those who stay too curious to be comfortable, too hungry to settle. If you are not Mahatma Gandhi, you don't know what to do with my hunger. I am not a destination, I am a direction, and you are too. So act like it. Fight arrival mentality with everything you have. Never settle. And do share this video. So I get invited to speak at organizations, and one of the most talked about topics is growth. Growth is such a strange thing, you know. Most people picture it as adding more money, more followers, more skills, more influence. But they often discount the fact that growth sometimes looks exactly the opposite, like less, like losing things. For example, look at nature. When a gardener is pruning a tree, he cuts off living branches, not dead, living branches. Not because he hates the tree, but because he wants it to bear sweeter fruit. I call it addition by subtraction. Or look at an athlete, for instance. They cut weight, they strip fat, they sacrifice comfort so that they can be faster, stronger, and sharper. But somehow in life, we think losing is always failing, when in reality, some losses are promotions in disguise. Sometimes the proof that you are growing is not what you are gaining, but what you are willing to let go of. I remember I once said something at a meeting. I said, we hold on to old habits because it's scary to have empty hands. Even though that's the only way to grasp something new, we forget that carrying everything slows us down. If there's something I've realized, it's that some of your greatest elevations will require you shedding weight you thought you couldn't live without. And you know what's crazy? Some people's whole identity is wrapped up in that very thing they refuse to release. So when life tries to grow them by subtraction, they resist and stay exactly where they are. Most people just know a snake sheds its skin. They don't know why. A snake sheds its skin because if it doesn't, it will literally suffocate under what used to protect it. What if that's you? Still wrapped up in old seasons, old titles, old relationships, old versions of yourself, suffocating under blessings that have expired. So maybe next time something falls away, or someone leaves, or a door closes, you should not only mourn it, you should investigate who is responsible, because it could be growth. It doesn't always look like more. Sometimes it looks like less, so you can become more. I've said this before. Your life is a startup. You are not just living it, you are building it. Every morning that you wake up, you are the CEO of your own existence. Your habits are your staff. Your thoughts are your board meetings. Your decisions are daily venture capital investments into your future. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people are amateur founders of their own life. They treat their existence like a side hustle. They borrow identity from trends, never solidifying conviction as to who they really are. Let me give you a startling image. Imagine building a skyscraper, 100 floors of glass, but you are standing it on sand. You were too busy with the aesthetics to notice that the ground was hollow. That's how most people build. They get the PR right, but they always forget about the foundation. A founder must eventually become foundation itself. Now, what does that quote mean? It means that your life's mission must be so entrenched in your bone marrow that if people cut you open, your purpose will bleed out. It means your character is not just buzzwords or slogans. These are iron bars driven into the very bedrock of who you are. It means if you vanish tomorrow, what you built won't collapse because it carries your structural integrity within it. Greatness is rarely a product of speed. It is a monument of endurance. This goes to those who are in active pursuit of a shortcut or a moment of virality at the expense of consistency. If your life is a tree, then pain is the pruning. Without pruning, you will grow wild and fruitless. So here's my challenge. Stop treating your life like a social media campaign. This is it. This is as real as it gets. The impartiality of time spells doom for the undecided. Stop outsourcing your purpose to opinion. Be the founder who becomes foundation. The person who stops seeking permission to be who they already are. I've learned a very important lesson and I'll share it with you. The strongest structures in the world are invisible. Your courage, your integrity, your conviction. If you slowly and intentionally build those, the visible will take care of itself. And one day, the earthquakes of life will definitely come. But you won't just survive. You will prove to the world that all along, you were not just standing. You had become the ground itself. You might need to watch this video more than once. Life is a game. Life at its core is a series of tournaments. Some are visible, some are hidden. Some are played on grand stages, others in the silence of your mind. But here's the thing, a game you are not excited to win is already lost. Long before the scoreboard starts counting, so many people step into these arenas with no real appetite for triumph. They show up because they think they should, because others are clapping, because it seems like the noble thing to do. But deep inside, there's no fire, no sparkles in the eyes, no voltage in the heart. Do you know? A farmer in Ibadan once told me something very profound. He said it in Yoruba, but I will translate to English. He invariably said, if a farmer scatters seeds that he is not eager to harvest, the soil can read his indifference. The sun can be unkind to the seeds, and rain can visit other fields and exclude his own. Because even nature conspires against the lukewarm. Even Jesus said he will spit out the lukewarm from his mouth. You know one thing that has become crystal clear to me? Excitement is more than an emotion. It is a declaration. It signals to your subconscious, to your circumstances, even to unseen forces that you are here for the prize, that you intend to pour yourself out until the game bends to your will. A person who is not excited to win the game of their own goals is like a sailor who builds a ship or fears the ocean. He will forever tell stories of voyages he never took. History rarely remembers the merely competent. It remembers the consumed, the ones so lit up by the pursuit of their purpose that we almost feared for their mental health, the ones who wanted it so badly the universe had no choice but to step aside. At the end of the day, life does not hand out trophies for attendance. It rewards the minds intoxicated with purpose, the souls that wake up in the morning with a rush, not because life is easy, but because the game itself is worth every drop of sweat. So ask yourself, am I truly excited to win at this, or am I just politely participating, hoping to avoid the pain of real commitment? A lack of enthusiasm is a form of quiet self-sabotage. You are basically telling destiny, when you are giving out crowns and medals, skip me. You see, no one ever teaches us how to become the kind of person who can live with what we are praying for. We are obsessed with arrival, but never trained for residence. And so we pray for spotlight, forgetting that light also exposes what is broken. We pray for influence, not realizing that the same crowd that cheers you today will crucify you tomorrow for values that you haven't settled privately. Let me say this clearly. If you don't become the person your dream requires, your dream will become your downfall. You can get married before you become emotionally mature. You can become famous before you become self-aware. You can become rich before you know what money really is, and lose it trying to impress people who don't really care. You know what happens when a 3-bedroom mindset enters a 30-room mansion? It shrinks the whole house. And if your character doesn't grow with your calling, you will self-destruct elegantly. 70% of lottery winners lose their wealth within 3 to 5 years. 80% of first-time CEOs fail. Even in sports, rookies who rise too fast often fade just as quickly. Speed without structure is sabotage. Everybody wants to be crowned, but no one wants to be crushed into the kind of king or queen that can carry the crown with grace. Imagine asking for rain but never building a roof. The rain comes and instead of blessing you, it floods your house and ruins everything you own. The rain didn't fail, your preparation did. So the real question is not what do you want? The real question is what kind of life can you sustain without it breaking you? God will not send what your character will cancel. So before you ask when it will happen, ask yourself, Am I becoming the kind of person who won't break when it does happen? Because the dream is not delayed. Not really. You are just in training. Every dream comes with a demand. The future you want is already interviewing you right now. And when you are finally ready to carry it without losing yourself, that's when the door opens, not a second earlier. You know, the year 2025 is 52% complete. We're in the second half of the year. And in my rumination, I found out something strange. We are all basically time travelers. And I don't mean the sci-fi movie type of hopping into a machine and landing in 2050. But I mean that in how we actually navigate time, in how our choices move us. Some people move through time hour by hour, day by day, living in this routine where Monday leads to Tuesday, and that's it. Nothing changes, just cycles repeated. But some people, they make one decision, they take one risk, they meet one person, and it's like they just jumped 10 years into the future. I mean, think about it. Some people work at a job for 5 years, saving slowly, stacking experience, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Then you have someone else who takes a leap into starting a business. He fails fast, learns hard lessons, grows networks, he gets funding, and in 2 to 3 years, they are already living a reality that the first person will have only reached in maybe like 2035, if ever. We are all moving through time, just not at the same pace. And the more that I think about it, the more that I become sure that even though you can't outrun time, you can outpace it. Some people's conversations push them decades ahead in thinking, while some people's environment lock them into yesterday. It's like two farmers. One plants a mango tree that takes about 10 years to bear fruit. The other plants maize that takes about 3 months or so. They are both farming, but the timelines of their harvest is radically different. Sometimes it's not even about hard work. It's about which future your work is tied to. Remember, I've told you so many times before that the future is not a geographical construct. The future is a series of events that encapsulates the maturation of human purpose. By that definition, you realize that effort doesn't always equal advancement. Direction does. Taking 10,000 steps on a treadmill cannot get you from point A to point B. Now, you know what else is crazy? Mistakes are time travel too, but often in reverse. A bad investment, a wrong relationship, a drug addiction, they can set you back years. So yeah, when we say everyone has their time, it's true, but it's also misleading, because time is not this passive thing that just arrives. Time is something that you travel through on the strength of the vehicle of your decisions. So, back to the beginning of this conversation. Now, you see that the question isn't really what year it is. The question is, how far have your decisions taken you, and how far behind have they left you? Because every decision is a vehicle. Some are rockets, some are wheelbarrows, some are even in reverse gears. The calendar measures years, wisdom measures distance. They say practice makes perfect. I don't agree. I think that statement has the propensity to be very misleading, because here's the uncomfortable truth. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice only makes permanent. It just solidifies what you are repeating, whether it's right or wrong, wise or foolish. Think of a cook who is told jollof rice takes 45 minutes. So he sets his timer, walks away and waits. He doesn't taste, he doesn't check the seasoning, he doesn't adjust for pot size. You know that mastery in cooking is not about time on the stove. It's about tasting, tweaking, refining. The same is true about life. In fact, research backs it up. A 2014 study by Anders Ericsson, the same psychologist who inspired the 10,000 hour rule, he clarified that it's not sheer hours of practice that matter, but hours of deliberate practice. That means feedback, correction, and constant adjustments. Because 10,000 hours of flawed technique just makes you an expert at doing it wrong. You can unintentionally be practicing yourself into irrelevance. In fact, let me shock you. It is very possible to be highly disciplined and still be heading nowhere. So here's a better principle. It's not practice that makes perfect. It is reflective practice that drives evolution. It is the willingness to stop, taste your own jollof rice, realize maybe it needs more seasoning, or maybe it even needs an entirely new recipe. Because practice is like cement. Once it sets, it is incredibly hard to change. So if the foundation was faulty, all you've done is establish cracks that will be there forever, or until what you are building inevitably collapses, because it will. The cracks are there for a reason. So I'll leave you with this. Don't just practice. Interrogate your practice, adjust it, upgrade it, evolve it. Practice by itself doesn't make perfect. It only cements what you know that works. But the problem is, what you know may be inadequate. Every time that I look at the moon, all I can think of is the selflessness of the sun. You've probably noticed it. I learned so much from observing the character of the sun. Most people don't even realize that the moon has no light of its own. It just hangs there, a cold, dusty rock. But because the sun decides to shine on it, we get these beautiful nights. These nights that provide a conducive environment for storytelling. These nights that help travelers find their way. These nights happen because of a light that doesn't even belong to the moon. It kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? From a real life angle, how many of us are glowing today because someone else decided to be selfless? We are often standing on borrowed light, basking in the light someone else paid for. Think about it. That job that you have, maybe it came because someone vouched for you. That business you started, maybe it was possible because a parent or a partner carried certain burdens that made it possible for you to take that risk. Even your confidence, could it be that it was built on tiny moments of encouragement that came from people who didn't really have to do that for you? Behind every shining person is a quiet army of people who light them up. And you know what's crazy? A lot of these people don't often get to see the glow that they helped create. The sun actually never sees the moonlight. It just keeps shining, trusting that somewhere out there, it is making the night less dark for someone. It makes me think, what if we started living like that? What if we decided to be the sun for others, to lend our light, to open doors, to give kind words, to share opportunities, not because we'll get something back, but just because someone else's night might get a little less dark? Because at the end of the day, that's how the world quietly moves forward. Not by everyone holding their shine, but by people who decide, I will light you up, even if I never get the credit. Real impact is often invisible. I have come to terms with it. You may never see how bright someone shines because of you. Do it anyway. So yeah, next time you find yourself admiring the moon, don't forget the sun. Give the sun its deserved credit. And then maybe ask yourself, whose moonlight are you right now? Who is glowing today because you decided to shine? And if you still have people in your life who represent the sun, send them a text. Say thank you. If you're an overthinker, I want you to listen closely to this, because I've been thinking about you lately. I've realized that, ironically, you run the risk of having a very fragile relationship with reality. I've realized that one of the hardest things for overthinkers to accept is that despite all the hours they spent chewing on a particular subject, they still might not have thought of everything. It feels almost offensive, like an insult to all those sleepless nights spent pacing about, or all those hours staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations in their heads. It's why you often hear them say, I took my time to think about it. As if time itself guarantees thoroughness. As if long thoughts automatically mean complete thoughts. Time invested in thought is not always proof of thought well spent. Cognitive science tells us that the average human has about 6,000 distinct thoughts per day, most of them repetitive. Studies on rumination show that over 70% of what we obsess over never actually materializes. So all that thinking, it's mostly spent chasing shadows. It reminds me of an old story of 5 blind men feeling different parts of an elephant. One holds the tusk and says, "It is a spear." Another touches the side and says, "This is a wall." Another holds the tail and says, "This is a rope." They each take their time, thoroughly feeling their section. Yet, none of them actually knows it's an elephant. Time didn't save them from incomplete conclusions. Perspective did. And that's what overthinkers often lack. A fresh angle beyond their own echo chamber. So here's what I've learned. You can spend forever thinking and still miss the obvious. Because time is not the same as truth. And mental labor is not always mental progress. Sometimes the best way to see your blind spots is not more time alone in your head, but stepping back, switching the light on, or inviting another pair of eyes. Because in the end, it's not in how long you thought, it is how far your thoughts actually travel. They are two very different things. Be careful so that what you call certainty is not just well-polished guesswork. I've said this before. Your life is a startup. You are not just living it, you are building it. Every morning that you wake up, you are the CEO of your own existence. Your habits are your staff. Your thoughts are your board meetings. Your decisions are daily venture capital investments into your future. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people are amateur founders of their own life. They treat their existence like a side hustle. They borrow identity from trends, never solidifying conviction as to who they really are. Let me give you a startling image. Imagine building a skyscraper, 100 floors of glass, but you are standing it on sand. You were too busy with the aesthetics to notice that the ground was hollow. That's how most people build. They get the PR right, but they always forget about the foundation. A founder must eventually become foundation itself. Now, what does that quote mean? It means that your life's mission must be so entrenched in your bone marrow that if people cut you open, your purpose will bleed out. It means your character is not just buzzwords or slogans. These are iron bars driven into the very bedrock of who you are. It means if you vanish tomorrow, what you built won't collapse because it carries your structural integrity within it. Greatness is rarely a product of speed. It is a monument of endurance. This goes to those who are in active pursuit of a shortcut or a moment of virality at the expense of consistency. If your life is a tree, then pain is the pruning. Without pruning, you will grow wild and fruitless. So here's my challenge. Stop treating your life like a social media campaign. This is it. This is as real as it gets. The impartiality of time spells doom for the undecided. Stop outsourcing your purpose to opinion. Be the founder who becomes foundation. The person who stops seeking permission to be who they already are. I've learned a very important lesson and I'll share it with you. The strongest structures in the world are invisible. Your courage, your integrity, your conviction. If you slowly and intentionally build those, the visible will take care of itself. And one day, the earthquakes of life will definitely come. But you won't just survive. You will prove to the world that all along, you were not just standing. You had become the ground itself. You might need to watch this video more than once. I want to share a personal story with you. In 2017, I won the biggest rap competition in the country then, the Hennessy VS class. Now, what most people didn't know then was that I only found out I had qualified for the finals a day before. Meanwhile, everyone I was going up against had been preparing for over a month. I had just 24 hours to prepare. In fact, as soon as I discovered I would be in the finals, I went to meet one of the other finalists at his studio, explaining my plight and asking for advice. You will very likely see this video. Now, in just 24 hours, in order to be safe, I had to write about 16 different rap verses and memorize them. Anyone who's familiar with rap knows this is almost impossible, but I had no choice. Bear in mind, I was living in Ibadan at the time, so on the morning of the finals, I had to travel down to Lagos. To cut the long story short, the competition started. Quarterfinal, I went up against an incredible rapper called Styx. I knew I wasn't as prepared as I should be, and the consciousness of that made me stumble a bit. It was a close call. The judges were tied, so they called Styx and I back to have one more round, the tiebreaker. That was the moment I turned everything around. I tore through that round and then decimated the semi-final and final opponents back to back, and I won. But here's the thing. Even after winning, I couldn't celebrate. The guys were having a good time with some of the Hennessy bottles I was given for winning. Some of my opponents were even at my hotel room that night reminiscing about the competition and having a good time generally. But I remember I left the hotel for a while and was strolling through the streets of Ikoyi. In the midnight, I was sipping Vigil milk. All I kept thinking was, what if I hadn't been called back for that tiebreaker round? That seemed to be the smear in an otherwise flawless victory, and I couldn't move past it. You see, Warren Buffett once said, if I need a 50-page contract contract to protect me from someone I'm supposed to do business with, then I'll always wonder if I actually needed 51. You see, in this context, that quote didn't hit me because of business. It hits me because I know what it feels like to live with the ghost of the 51st clause. Walk with me. My obsessing over what would have happened if they had not called me back for that tiebreaker round was the 51st clause, the trap. Even when you win, fear makes you question the path. Even when you succeed, perfection makes you obsess over small margins. It is a very dangerous place to live, where even your victories feel insufficient, where excellence becomes a moving target. What I had achieved that night was insane, but I had completely lost sight of it. Now, I've been told I don't know how to celebrate my wins. And what's worse, if you are not careful, you'll start projecting these same standards on people who never signed up for that kind of war. And this has caused a lot of bad blood within families and corporate organizations. I'm learning sometimes the real discipline isn't preparation, it is presence. It is knowing when enough is enough. It is in giving yourself permission to feel joy without fear whispering, what if? Don't let the ghost of the 51st clause rob you of the intangibles. These little joys add up. I'm not saying you should dwell, but celebrate your wins no matter how little. Sometimes the win is the win. Let it be. I was watching an old boxing match the other night, and honestly, for the first few rounds, I thought I knew how the fight was gonna end. One guy was clearly ahead. He was faster, cleaner, landing more punches. The other guy, however, he looked overwhelmed, outpaced, a few cuts on his face already. If you judged by the scoreboard, he was losing, but then something shifted. The guy who looked tired started pressing forward, started timing, started landing, and in one round, I think the 7th round, boom, one uppercut, game over. The fighter who was behind for most of the match won. That thing stayed with me longer than usual because I realized that's how life is. People judge your story too early. I mean, I judged the guy too early. People look at your scoreboard in round 3 and assume that's the final result. What people don't realize is that scoreboards don't track willpower. Some of us don't win early because we are too busy learning how to win for real. You know the wildest part of this story? The boxer who won the fight that night did not land up to half as much punches as the other guy. He was far behind on points, but he won because he landed the right one. Sometimes it's not always about how much. Sometimes it's about when. Be wary of those who seem to always be on the receiving end of life's punches. They may just have been building endurance this whole time. I have learned, even from personal journey, that not everyone's silence is a weakness. Some silences are deliberate. Be wary of the ones who will not waste their arrows. They may be mastering timing. Careful who you write off, including yourself. We've only watched the early rounds of your life. You've trained too long. You've survived too much. You've studied too hard. So stay in the ring. Stay there. Focus. One moment, one move can still shift the entire story. This guy lost every round but won the match. What that tells me is that your past records don't matter as long as your head is still in the game. The wise ones know that winning battles does not mean anything if you don't eventually win the war. So zoom out. The victory is much bigger than the rounds. Look, this is the age of the underdogs. You and I. No name boys and girls. The ones they didn't see coming. So stay locked in. Share this video. Strengthen your tribe. Remind your people who they are. There are things you know, and there are things you assume based on what you know. The problem is, they feel the same, but they're not. The wisest people in the room know the difference, and they never confuse the two. You see, assumptions are like counterfeit money. They look like truth until it's time to spend them. Knowledge is grounded, assumption is guessed. Both of them move you forward, though, don't get me wrong. But on the day of trouble, only one will hold. Let me show you how dangerous this can be. I once heard this story. In 1999, NASA lost a $125 million spacecraft. It was called the Mars Climate Orbiter. Now, why did they lose it? Because one engineering team used metric units and the other assumed they were using imperial units. So metric units use terms like liters, meters, and grams, but imperial uses feet, inches, gallons, and pounds. One small assumption, millions of dollars lost. That is the cost of assuming you are aligned when you haven't confirmed the facts. Now, here's the trap. The human brain does not like ambiguity, so it fills in the gaps with stories, memories, and previous patterns and then calls it knowing. But what you then have is not clarity, it is familiarity dressed up as certainty. We've all been guilty of this. Think of a courtroom, right? Knowing is evidence, assumption is speculation. Only one wins the case. Every single day you are judge, jury, and executioner of your own decisions. So the question is, are you convicting your life based on facts or based on feelings that only look like facts? Wisdom, as I've come to learn, is not in having all the answers. It is in knowing when you are guessing. Get this. The fool builds on assumption and calls it insight. The wise man pauses at the edge of his knowledge and says, I don't know yet. You see, that cause, it's not weakness. Because the moment you admit, I don't know, you open the door to learning, to growth, and to getting it right. Assumption has led people into wrong marriages, bad investments, broken friendships, broken relationships, and missed opportunities more than outright ignorance ever did. Because at least ignorance knows that it does not know, but assumption walks around with misplaced confidence. What you know will guide you. What you assume might blind you. So slow down. Ask better questions. Verify what feels obvious. I've said it here before. Feelings are overrated and unreliable. Wisdom lives in the space between knowing and assuming. Have you ever stopped to ask this question? Why do we clap? I mean, it is just two palms slapping together over and over again. But somehow, it makes noise. It sends energy. It changes the room, and we do it almost instinctively. When we are moved, when we are impressed, when we agree, when we don't know what else to do. But think about it. Clapping is one of the few things human beings do together without necessarily having to agree. No one sends a signal. No one holds a meeting. But when one person starts, the rest follow. It spreads like fire. That is because clapping isn't just noise. It is a shared language. Clapping is how we say, I see you, you matter, you did something worth recognizing. But here is the real twist. Clapping is the sound your body makes when your soul wants to say something. Let that land. When words fail, the body speaks. And sometimes the loudest form of expression is just your hands. Think about it. We don't teach babies to clap. They pick it up because it is inherent in us to respond to goodness, to brilliance, to light. Now pause for a second and ask yourself, when was the last time you clapped for yourself? Now I know this is corny, but hear me out. When was the last time you clapped for yourself? Not for being perfect, not for being applauded, just for showing up, for growing, for surviving things you never told anyone about. When last did I go frank in a trap? It's been long, very long. The world trains us to clap for others, but healing actually begins when we learn to clap for ourselves. So right now, do something wild. Clap for you. Clap for the battles you fought. Clap for the healing you are doing. Clap for the dreams you are still holding on to, even though it's hard. You may cry or become a little emotional in the process, because for the first time in a long time, you will be forced to acknowledge the growth that you have accrued, no matter how little you think it is. Allow it. Alex Hormozi said, you always have to be the one rooting for you before everyone else does. And it's usually a single clap in the auditorium for a very long time. So maybe let that clap start tonight. And if this message moved you even a little, clap for me too, because it means I touched something real. You don't need a stage to deserve applause. You just need to be honest with how far you have come. For you, for growth, for the human in you that is still becoming.